Welcome to Speak Up Weekly, the podcast where we bridge the gap between professional speech language pathology practices and everyday family life. I'm Jaleesa, and with me is our co host Lisa. Today, we're diving deep into strategies for language growth from both SLP and parent perspectives.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. I am so excited to deep dive into this topic today.
Absolutely, Lisa. Today's episode is all about practical, evidence based strategies that parents can implement at home while understanding the professional perspective behind these approaches. We'll cover everything from birth through school age, discussing both typical development and when to seek additional support. Let's start with the foundation. What does research tell us about how children naturally acquire language?
That's such an important starting point, Jaleesa. I wish I'd understood this earlier. Before, I thought language just happened naturally without much input from us.
You're not alone in that thinking, Lisa. The truth is, while children are biologically wired to learn language, they need rich, meaningful interactions to develop optimally. Research consistently shows that the quantity and quality of language input during the first 3 years is crucial. We call this the critical period for language development. Children who receive more conversational turns, those back and forth exchanges, show stronger language skills later on.
So it's not just about talking to children, but talking with them. What does that look like in practice? Especially for parents who might feel unsure about how to engage their young children in meaningful conversation.
Great question. One of the most powerful strategies is called parallel talk and self talk. Parallel talk means describing what your child is doing as they do it. For example, if your toddler is stacking blocks, you might say, "You're putting the red block on top. Now you're reaching for the blue one." Self talk involves describing your own actions. "I'm washing the dishes. The water is warm and soapy." This provides rich vocabulary and models sentence structure without pressure on the child to respond.
I love how simple yet intentional that is. And it works for any activity, right? I remember my friend mentioning starting to do this during bath and mealtime with her son. He went from barely speaking at 18 months to having a vocabulary explosion by his second birthday.
Exactly. And that brings us to another evidence based approach: following the child's lead. Instead of directing play or conversation, we observe what captures the child's attention and join them there. If they're fascinated by cars, we talk about cars. If they're exploring textures, we provide vocabulary for those sensations. This child centered approach ensures the language we're modeling is relevant and meaningful to them in that moment.
Jaleesa, let's talk about different age groups because what works for a toddler might not be appropriate for a school age child. Can you walk us through some age specific strategies?
Absolutely. For infants, birth to 12 months, it's all about responsive interaction. Make eye contact. Respond to their coos and babbles as if they're having a real conversation. Use varied intonation. That sing song voice called parent tease actually helps babies distinguish speech sounds better. For toddlers, 12 to 36 months, we add strategies like expansion and extension. If a child says dog, we might expand it to big dog or extend it to, "Yes, that's a big brown dog running in the park."
And for preschoolers and school age children?
For preschoolers, 3 to 5 years old, we focus on complex sentence structures, storytelling, and problem solving language. Ask open ended questions like, "What do you think will happen next?" Or, "How do you think the character feels?" For school age children, we work on narrative skills, abstract thinking, and academic language. This includes discussing cause and effect, making predictions, and understanding multiple meanings of words. Reading together and discussing books becomes incredibly valuable at this stage.
Let's talk about those daily routine opportunities you mentioned. As busy parents, we're always looking for ways to incorporate learning into things we're already doing. What are some natural opportunities that parents might be missing?
Daily routines are gold mines for language development. During mealtime, talk about colors, textures, tastes, and temperatures of food. Use sequence words like first we'll wash our hands, then we'll sit down, and finally we'll eat. Bath time offers opportunities to discuss concepts like full and empty, hot and cold, wet and dry. Even grocery shopping becomes a language lesson. You can work on categories, counting, following directions, and making choices. The key is being intentional about these moments rather than defaulting to screens or silence. Speaking of screens, this brings up an important topic many parents ask about. What role should technology play in language development?
Oh, that's a hot topic in our house. And with every parent I know, we're constantly balancing screen time recommendations with the reality of busy family life. There are so many apps and programs claiming to boost language development. How do we separate fact from marketing hype?
Excellent question, Lisa. The research is clear that for children under 24 months, live human interaction is far superior to screen based learning for language development. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends avoiding screens except for video chatting before 18 months. For toddlers 18 to 24 months, if you choose to use screens, watch together and talk about what you're seeing. For children 2 to 5 years old, high quality educational content can be beneficial, but only with co viewing and discussion. The key is that screens should never replace real conversations and interactions. Think of technology as a tool to enhance, not replace, human connection.
That makes so much sense. So, when we do use screens, what are some practical ways to make that time more language rich? I know a lot of parents feel guilty about any screen time, but if it's happening anyway, how can we maximize the benefit?
Great mindset, Lisa. First, choose content with slower pacing and clear storylines. Fast moving, flashy programs are harder for young brains to process. Look for shows that use repetition and encourage participation, like asking viewers to find objects or repeat words. During viewing, pause frequently to ask questions. What do you think will happen next? Or how do you think that character feels? After viewing, extend the learning by acting out scenes, drawing pictures of favorite characters, or reading books related to the show. Most importantly, narrate what's happening, just like you would during real life activities. Remember, the magic happens in the conversation, not the screen itself.
Delisa, let's address the elephant in the room. What about parents who are concerned their child's language development isn't progressing typically? When should they seek professional help? And how can they advocate for their child?
This is so important, Lisa. Trust your instincts as a parent. If you're concerned, seek evaluation, even if others say wait and see. Some general red flags include by 12 months, no babbling or gestures. By 18 months, fewer than 20 words. By 24 months, no two-word combinations. By 36 months, speech that's difficult for strangers to understand. Or at any age, loss of previously acquired skills. However, remember that development varies widely, and some children are late bloomers who catch up without intervention.
And even if a child is developing typically, these strategies benefit everyone, right? There's no such thing as too much rich language input.
Absolutely. These evidence based strategies support all children's language development. They're particularly beneficial for multilingual families, children from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, and those who might be at risk for language delays. The beautiful thing is that these approaches strengthen the parent child relationship while building communication skills.
Let's discuss some common challenges parents face. What about children who seem reluctant to communicate or prefer to use gestures instead of words?
First, honor all communication attempts, including gestures. If a child points to a cookie, acknowledge the gesture and model the word. Cookie, you want a cookie. Then provide the cookie. This shows that communication works without pressuring the child to speak. Avoid saying, use your words. Instead, provide the words they need. Create opportunities where communication is necessary by putting favorite items in sight but out of reach, or by pausing expectantly during familiar routines.
What about the opposite problem? Children who talk constantly but aren't really communicating effectively.
This often indicates a child who has learned that talking gets attention, but they may not understand the social aspects of communication. Work on turn taking in conversation, active listening skills, and staying on topic. Use visual cues like a talking stick or timer to help them understand when it's their turn to speak and when it's time to listen. Praise quality communication over quantity. Acknowledge when they ask thoughtful questions or share relevant information.
Let's talk about the collaboration between parents and SLPs. How can families make the most of professional services when they're needed?
Collaboration is absolutely key to successful outcomes. Parents are their child's first and most important teachers, and SLPs bring specialized knowledge about language development and intervention techniques. The magic happens when we work together. Parents should come to sessions prepared with questions, observe techniques being used, and ask for specific strategies to practice at home. Keep a communication log or video examples of your child's communication attempts to share with your SLP.
And don't be afraid to advocate for your child. If something isn't working, speak up. You know your child best, and your insights are valuable to the therapeutic process.
Exactly. I always tell parents that they're equal partners in their child's intervention team. Your observations about what motivates your child, what environments they communicate best in, and what challenges they face at home are crucial information that helps me tailor my approach. The most successful cases I see are when families are actively engaged and consistently implementing strategies at home.
I want to talk about something that affects many families in our community: multilingual households. I have friends who speak different languages at home and worry about how this might impact their child's language development. What should multilingual families know?
This is such an important topic, and I'm glad you brought it up. First, let me be clear: bilingualism and multilingualism are gifts, not obstacles. Research consistently shows that multilingual children often outperform monolingual peers in cognitive flexibility, problem solving, and executive function skills. Yes, multilingual children might have slightly smaller vocabularies in each individual language initially, but their total vocabulary across all languages is typically larger than monolingual children. The key is ensuring rich, meaningful exposure to each language through authentic interactions, not just passive listening. Absolutely. For books, look for predictable, repetitive stories with rich illustrations. Classic choices include Brown Bear, and The Very Hungry Caterpillar. For toys, blocks, Play Doh, and pretend play items naturally encourage language. Avoid electronic toys that do the talking for your child. For developmental milestones, the CDC's Learn the Signs, Act Early website is excellent, and ASHA has wonderful parent resources online. Remember, you don't need expensive materials. Household items, nature walks, and your own creativity are often the best tools.
That's such a practical list. Thank you. And I'd add that many communities have free resources: library story times, parent child play groups, and early intervention programs. Don't hesitate to reach out to your local school district or health department for information about services available in your area.
As we wrap up, let's give our listeners some concrete takeaways they can start implementing today, regardless of their child's language level.
Perfect. Here are 5 evidence based strategies every family can use starting today. First, follow your child's lead and talk about what interests them. Second, use parallel talk and self talk throughout daily routines. Third, expand on your child's communication attempts rather than correcting them. Fourth, read together daily and make it interactive by asking questions and making connections. And fifth, create communication opportunities by pausing expectantly and putting desirable items just out of reach. Remember, parents, you're not trying to be a speech therapist. You're being an engaged, responsive caregiver who provides rich language experiences. The goal isn't perfection, it's connection and communication.
Beautifully said, Lisa. Language development is a journey, not a destination. Every child progresses at their own pace, and every family's approach will look a little different. What matters most is that we're intentional about creating meaningful opportunities for communication and connection. Trust the process, celebrate small victories, and remember that you're giving your child one of the greatest gifts possible: the power of language.
Thank you to all our listeners for joining us on Language Learning Insights.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, if you have concerns about your child's language development, don't hesitate to reach out to a qualified speech language pathologist in your area. Until next time, keep talking, keep listening, and keep connecting with the children in your life.